that, you know, there's vulnerability. There's there's vulnerability. There's vulnerability. In the realm of filmmaking, documentary filmmaking is slightly easier than when you set out to create a feature film or a TV series. And in your 2022 plan, I'd suggest you include a few more documentaries, and you know, you'll tell me you'll create a little bit more content than you did last year. My name is Joan Kabugu. I'm a writer and a filmmaker. I'm also the founder of Akila Films, where we create authentic African stories. And you know, talking of documentaries, we have a short doc at Aljazeera English, courtesy of Africa Direct, and it's called Throttle Queens, and I'll leave it in the link below. Anyway, so I really wanted to share with you tips on how to get documentaries done, and not maybe in the easiest manner, but you know, just a few things I've learned over the years, which I think will help you, and also maybe I'll remind myself, and we'll be able to create more content. And I have like 10 tips. So 10 is a magic number. I have 10 tips on how you can get documentaries done, how to make them in a nice way so that, you know, you're able to reach your audience, you're able to sell them, able to make some money. And here goes. Number one is you need to have a vibrant, a good character. And across the board, when it comes to filmmaking, character is king, character is queen, character is everything. And character is what brings me to come and watch this story you've created. Like, you know, because, you know, a character makes it possible for me to relate to something. And the thing with having a good character is sometimes it can be daunting, that maybe when you meet them, they're not comfortable with you, and you cannot see the gem that they are. That's why sometimes when it comes to documentaries, you want to marinate your story and marinate the character and get to know them and see, like, okay, I really like, you know, their different perspectives, and, you know, if they're passionate about the story, their character also oozes out. So I can't emphasize enough, and that's why that was my number one, having a good character. Number two, you need a good narrative. And over time, I've realized that when you're doing research for your documentary story, you don't have all the pieces together. They are moving pieces, I call them sometimes, and you have to decide, like, you know, this story has 100 aspects. What 10 aspects do I want to focus on to bring the story, you know, to the front, and to make it interesting and exciting and relatable? And yeah, you need to do a bit of extra research. You have to talk to people. Sometimes maybe, like for me, I really love social issues. I like impact stories. I even like, you know, a bit of education, entertainment. So that calls for quite a bit of research. And, you know, I'm reminded of when I was doing documentaries in regard to conservation. I don't have a background in conservation, so I had to do a bit of reading, a bit of watching, a bit of, you know, talking to different people, so that I figure out, like, say, a story about climate change. So yeah, you need to really research so that you have a good, strong narrative. Number three, what are your filming elements? And when I talk about filming elements, that's exactly what I mean. What are you going to film? You know, whether you're a writer, whether you're a producer or the director, what to film is important to all of the three people. Like, you have to know what you want to communicate, and because we're in the film business, we are using visuals, so you have to really focus on what are we seeing in the story. So the last maybe few years I've really thought of locations, because I feel locations give your story character. So I don't know, you can borrow that, you know, like try always combine, like, you know, the character and set them in an interesting location. Sometimes maybe location is not important to your story, and that's well and good. But you know, like, I feel it's a good way that already that we see the world of the story is visually well represented. And the other thing about, you know, knowing exactly what you film, and you know, going ahead to have your different acts not only written in prose but also written in terms of, you know, visually, it helps your cinematographer understand your story and where you're going with the story. And you know, sometimes if you're the director, the producer, or the writer of the story, you've interacted with the story before for maybe even a much longer time, like even, I don't know, a year, 6 months. And when the cinematographer comes, they don't have, they're not able to connect with the story to that level, like, you know, uko mbele yake kidogo, and you have to communicate this. And I think once you know exactly what you want to film, how you want to film it, the filming style, like, it makes it much easier for you to communicate that, and for you to have them film your story, and for you to be like, all right, they get it. Number 4 is X factor. And when I talk about X factor, I'm asking, what is, you know, what is it about your story? Why should I see it? Why is it interesting? And you know, sometimes it can be like a huge worldview, like it's something big happening in the world, and you have insight and people who you would use to tell the story perfectly. Or it could be something very small. When I say something very small, I mean you could be personally connected to the story. This could be your parent, your mom, your dad, your sister. It could be your close friend. And you know, that small connection makes it super easy for you to tell the story, because already you have the relationship. So you actually jump a few steps as you're creating this story, because you already have, like, you know, this connection. And you know, sometimes, like in that case, the story really tells itself, because it's life going on. And you know, sometimes in a documentary, that's what you want life going on as usual, and you know, it's only that there's a camera present. So yeah, that connection, you know, it can be, you know, it's a huge global world event and you have this deep insight, or it can be like, you know, you have deep connection with the character, and the way you tell the story, you tell it with absolute ease, and that, I feel, really makes the story really, you know, strong and with perfect nuances. On point number 5, we'd want to ask the question, when is your story taking place? Is it a historical event? Is it based on current affairs? And I feel, you know, when you ask yourself this pertinent question, you are able to actually get some good story ideas. And it really helps even when you're deciding when do I want to premiere this story. And you know, like right now, I'm just thinking that we are getting into the elections, and you know, there's some story there, because there's a lot of activity happening. And you know, I'm not talking about the big two, but I'm talking about, like, at very grassroots levels. It would be nice to see stories of, you know, people who want our votes, and you know, looking at their scorecard the last, I don't know, few years. So that is definitely a place where you can get ideas. But when you look at, you know, what are the current affairs, and I know a few content creators who are doing reality kind of content, and they really look at what is happening now, what is current. And yeah. Point number 6, recording your master interview. I always feel that whenever you are set on the story and you have your character, as you get close to, like, really now gearing up to telling the story, I feel you need a sit down. And you know, I'm borrowing this from a project I did last year. It's still to be launched, so I can't say a lot about it, but you know, when we did a story, we first and foremost did a sit down with the character, a long sit down, like almost 3 hours, to just understand her perspective, where the story is concerned. And I think when you do this long master interview, it's also what gives you grounds on what to research and how to even write the script for your documentary. And you know, this long master interview, like, you know, it really, like when you do it early, you can always repeat it again at some point, but when you do it early, it opens your mind, because when you're coming to the story, there's what you know and what you know in regards to the story. But as the days go by, sometimes things change, and you know, when you do this master interview, you know, as I'm starting this story, this is where we are at, and this is probably where we want to be. And it really gives you a basis, especially on when it comes to writing out the first draft of the script. Point number 7, building a relationship with your character. I cannot emphasize the importance of really, you know, having a good relationship with your character. And I know some of the films that I've enjoyed in the recent past, like I know the relationship between, say, the director and the character, like, you know, either it's a friendship, and I think I've mentioned this earlier, like when you build a relationship, you're able to remove the anxiety of the camera from your character. Like your character finally, like, you know, not I was arguing with a friend of mine that, actually it was my brother, that when you're filming, even if it's an observation documentary, that the person will always be aware that the camera is there. And yes, I agree, the person will always be aware. But when you build a relationship, I feel now the story is unfolding, and maybe they're telling the story to you, you're following, like, you know, they are comfortable around you, and then they get comfortable around your camera. I don't know, does it make sense? Yeah, build a really good relationship before even you bring the camera. Like, you know, just hang out with your character and let the character know you as much as you're knowing them, so that, you know, there's vulnerability. There's there's vulnerability. Hey, there's vulnerability between the two of you. Number 8, I would say, once you feel like you have a really good relationship and the story, you know, you've written it out and you've done all the other things you've mentioned, go ahead and schedule your filming dates. Yeah, like just say that I'm going to film in March and April for 10 days and block them out in your calendar, and, you know, stick to your schedule. Because, you know, if you don't plan ahead, you plan to fail, or you plan for other plans to come and interfere with your documentary plans. So, you know, schedule and get in touch with the people you need to get in touch with, and, you know, get in touch with your character and go out and film. As we wind up, number 9, I'd say have patience. The last few years I've been learning about observation documentary filmmaking, and this is where you just, you know, take your camera and over a long period of time you just follow the character. And I don't mean, you know, following them for 300 days out of 365, or is it 7, but, you know, like every year, like you're waiting for the story to unfold. And, you know, sometimes you get stories which are not unfolding, especially if they're not based on current affairs. Maybe they're really character led, like you're waiting for them to unfold like a flower, and it becomes this, you know, very gisty flower that's taking so long to unfold, and you have to have patience. And I feel it's a give and take. You get to do a documentary a little bit easier because it's slightly cheaper and needs less resources, but also now you have to work with eventuality that the story is not right here. Yeah, sometimes you have to sort of cultivate it. Yeah. And yeah, coming to the very, very, very last point, mundane activity. I feel some of the best documentaries that I've watched, especially those that are observation documentaries, I think I'll maybe link a few of the ones I love. I can't get them top of my head. Like, I feel they have a lot of mundane activities that, you know, just you're looking at someone and it's their everyday life. It's their everyday life. They're going through the motions of life, and as they go through the motion of life, the motions of life, the story is taking place, the story is happening, the story is unfolding. And I feel at that juncture, definitely they've forgotten about the camera. And they're just living their lives as you document it. And you're, at that point, you're a very lucky filmmaker. So yeah, that's it. My 10 tips to, you know, being able to create more documentaries. I'll definitely be sharing more content more often, and subscribe to our channel Aquila Films and get notifications when we have a new video up, you know, sharing about our filmmaking journey, sharing about our business journey. So